In the heart of an Igbo village named Umudike, nestled between rolling hills and lush greenery, lived a girl known only as Adaeze. The villagers whispered tales about her, referring to her as the Snake Girl. It wasn't her name, but it defined her existence in a way that both fascinated and terrified the people of Umudike. The legend of the Snake Girl began long ago, when Adaeze was just a child. She was born during a violent storm, the kind that shook the earth and cracked the sky. The village diviner, an elder named Nana, prophesied that the child would possess an unusual gift, a connection to the spirit of the snake, a symbol of transformation and healing. However, this gift would come with a price. As Adaeze grew, it became apparent that the villagers were both enamored and fearful of her abilities. As a child, Adaeze was playful and innocent. She would wander into the forest, where she discovered that she could communicate with snakes. They would coil around her arms and legs, and she would laugh and dance with them, her laughter echoing through the trees. Yet, as she entered her teenage years, whispers turned to shouts. Some believed her to be a witch, while others thought she was cursed. Parents warned their children to stay away from her, fearing that her touch could bring misfortune. Despite the fear she instilled in others, Adaeze found solace in her connection to the snakes. They became her friends, and she learned their ways. The elders, however, remained wary of her, believing that her powers could disrupt the balance of their world. They recalled the ancient tales of a girl who could summon snakes to protect her village, but at a terrible cost. One fateful evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the village, a stranger arrived in Umudike. He was a tall man, with a presence that commanded attention. His name was Akanna, a wandering trader from a distant land. His eyes held secrets, and his aura was both enchanting and intimidating. Akanna had heard the tales of the Snake Girl and was curious to see her for himself. He wandered through the village, asking questions and listening to the villagers' fears and admiration. The women whispered about his charming smile and the way he spoke with a melodic cadence, but the men eyed him suspiciously. That night, during a village gathering, Akanna spoke to the people. "I have come to share stories from afar and to learn about your culture. But most importantly, I seek the Snake Girl. I have heard of her powers and wish to meet her." The crowd fell silent. Adaeze was not present, but the mention of her name stirred a mix of emotions. Fear, curiosity, and intrigue washed over the villagers. They had all heard the tales, but Akanna's presence seemed to change everything. "I seek her not to harm her but to understand her," Akanna continued, his voice smooth and inviting. "I believe she holds the key to a great mystery that could benefit us all." Days passed, and Akanna remained in the village, becoming a familiar face. He shared tales of far-off lands, and the villagers grew to admire him. However, he never gave up his quest to meet Adaeze. Finally, one afternoon, as Adaeze was playing by the river, a sense of curiosity drew her attention. Akanna was nearby, and she could feel a strange energy between them. He was sitting on a rock, sketching the landscape, and Adaeze felt an urge to approach him. "Hello," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Akanna looked up, surprise lighting his features. "Oh, you are the Snake Girl," he said, his tone a mix of awe and admiration. "I've heard many tales about you." Adaeze felt a flush of warmth and nervousness. "I'm just Adaeze," she replied, her eyes darting to the ground. "The stories aren't true. Are you not able to communicate with the snakes?" Akanna asked, his gaze piercing through her. "I've seen them around you, and they seem to trust you." Adaeze hesitated but felt a strange connection to him. "I can," she admitted, "but it is not a gift, it's more of a burden. The villagers fear me because of it." Akanna smiled gently. "Fear can be transformed into admiration. I believe you have the potential to be a great leader in your community. Imagine what you could achieve if they embraced your gifts instead of shunning them." As days turned into weeks, Adaeze and Akanna developed a bond that transcended the fear of her village. He encouraged her to embrace her gifts, teaching her to use her connection with snakes for healing and protection. Under Akanna's guidance, Adaeze began to understand her powers. She learned to summon snakes for various purposes, finding lost items, protecting crops from pests, and even assisting the sick. The villagers watched in awe as she demonstrated her abilities, slowly shifting their perceptions of her. However, Temitope, a local Yoruba girl who had always envied Adaeze's natural charm and grace, felt threatened. Her jealousy simmered beneath the surface, leading her to concoct a plan to expose Adaeze and undermine her newfound relationship with Akanna. Temitope devised a plan to turn the villagers against Adaeze. She approached the village elders, spinning a tale of deceit and betrayal. Adaeze is not what she seems, she proclaimed. She may charm you with her snakes, but she is a witch, using her powers to control you. The elders, already wary of Adaeze, began to doubt her intentions. Temitope suggested they gather the villagers for a public demonstration, where Adaeze would have to prove her innocence. If she truly has powers, let her summon a snake to protect us from danger, Temitope challenged. The elders agreed, believing it was the only way to ensure the safety of the village. They called a meeting and announced the challenge to Adaeze. Faced with public scrutiny, Adaeze felt a wave of fear wash over her. "I can do it," she declared, her voice shaky but determined. "I'll summon the snakes to protect us, and then you will see the truth." On the day of the demonstration, the entire village gathered, their faces a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Akanna stood beside Adaeze, offering his support. "You are stronger than you realize, Adaeze," he whispered, squeezing her hand. Adaeze stepped into the center of the gathering, feeling the weight of their expectations. She closed her eyes, focusing on the energy around her. "Spirit of the snake, I call upon you," she said, her voice rising above the whispers. The ground trembled, and a large python emerged from the nearby bushes, gliding gracefully towards her. Gasps echoed through the crowd, and Adaeze felt a surge of power. "See, I am not a witch. I am a protector," she shouted, her confidence growing. But just as she began to gain their trust, Temitope stepped forward, fear masked as bravado. "What if she commands the snake to harm us? Can you trust her?" In that moment, the python coiled protectively around Adaeze, sensing her fear and determination. "I do not control them, they choose to protect me," she explained, desperation creeping into her voice. Suddenly, a loud crack of thunder echoed, and dark clouds rolled in. The villagers gasped, fearing a storm. Temitope seized the moment. "See, she has summoned the storm. She is a witch." Akanna shouted, "No. This is the work of nature, not Adaeze. She can summon snakes, but she cannot control the elements." The python tightened its grip around Adaeze, sensing the fear and chaos. "I will not let fear dictate my destiny," she declared, raising her arms. The snake released its grip, and Adaeze stepped forward, confronting Temitope. "You are the one spreading fear, not me." As she spoke, the clouds began to part, and rays of sunlight broke through, illuminating the python. The villagers stood in awe, witnessing the bond between Adaeze and the snake. In that moment, something shifted. The villagers began to realize that their fear of Adaeze was misplaced. She was not a threat but a guardian. One by one, they stepped forward, acknowledging her bravery. Temitope, feeling the tide turn, shouted, "This is magic. She has bewitched you all." But the villagers, now united, responded with shouts of support for Adaeze. "We choose to believe in her," they cried, standing with her against the fear that had divided them for so long. With the village rallying behind her, Adaeze felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She looked at Akanna, who smiled proudly, and then at the python that had coiled protectively beside her. Together, We will protect our village from harm and help it grow." The villagers cheered, embracing Adaeze as their protector and leader.